Are you buying or selling a home? Having a realtor can make buying or selling real estate much easier. HomeGain can recommend and connect you with a top real estate agent in your area. Call 866-512-7918 or visit homegain.com. Did you know, according to a HomeGain nationwide survey, that having a realtor working for you improves your chances by 50% of getting your home sold? HomeGain can recommend and connect you with the top real estate agent in your area. Call 866-512-7918 or visit homegain.com.
Real Estate Radio Washington is hosted by local real estate and finance expert Ryan Sloper.
Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit homegain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to homegain.com.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Washington, D.C. Metro with local expert Ryan Sloper. Now, here's Ryan.
Welcome back, Washington, D.C. Metro, to Ryan Sloper's Real Estate Radio, and I'm joined today by Louis Cammarosano, the General Manager of HomeGain, and Sean Murphy, Real Estate Agent with RE/MAX Allegiance. Quick reminder, Real Estate Radio is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's market by giving you good free advice. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, the best number to reach out to us is our off-air number. It's 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. So we wrapped up the last segment talking about staging. Obviously, we know how important staging is now. I mean, if you guys out there are potentially looking to sell your house, I think the great takeaway from what Sean just told you is that he hasn't had a listing that's professionally staged stay on the market for longer than 30 days. I mean, that's a key indicator that you want to be working with somebody that understands that and has the numbers to back that up. Sean, you want to give out your information so they can, potential sellers can get in touch with you?
Yeah, of course. My cell phone number is 703-868-5999. If you Google my name, Sean Murphy, Realtor, RE/MAX, I'm going to come up all over the internet. My main website is dcmetroneighborhoods.com. That's dcmetroneighborhoods.com. You can call me anytime or contact me through my website.
Perfect. And, we wanted to jump into, in this segment, it's kind of very critical, especially since a lot of the, the media outlets, national headlines, they're always talking about average sales prices.
Right.
And since we have such a different market today, I mean, not really. We don't have as many foreclosures and short sales in, the D.C. metro area as other places of the country. However, in explaining things to your sellers, you say that it's critical that you talk in median numbers and that it's a more accurate depiction sometimes in a certain neighborhood of where you should be priced versus just looking at an average. Because obviously you could have a foreclosure short sale at 300 and have a normal sale at 500. Throws the numbers completely off.
Right. Or in an affluent area such as like Old Town Alexandria, in the median. When you figure out the median sales price, you're going to throw out the highest number. Well, that highest sales price could be $10 million in some cases, and the lowest could be, $100,000. So you really want to get a better indication. So, like for instance, if you compare June this year to last year, the median sales price was 4.4% increase. And if you look at the average sold price, it was 8.4. So that's a pretty big difference. So you really want to look at dive into the numbers rather than just listening to national statistics.
And then when you're you go on a listing presentation, I mean, is that one of the a bigger point that you want to make to the seller is that sometimes when you start if they go on and they just start doing their own research, that they might see that, hey, this house over here is this, and if you go to this neighborhood, I mean, I'm sure those conversations come up quite a bit.
Yeah, of course. And there's a lot of information out there on the internet. And
almost to its detriment sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes people will look at Zillow and the Zestimate, and I have to talk people off of that number quite a bit.
It's like, where did that number come from?
Right. Exactly. If I'm working with a buyer or a seller, they think that Zestimate is
the gospel. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, I think that and definitely in certain neighborhoods too. I mean, like we were talking, like Arlington, Alexandria, and a lot of the metro area. I mean, you could be on one street and it'd be $1 million, and be across the street and it'd be $500,000.
Right.
Just because we talked about it. Like in Old Town Alexandria, there's Section 8 housing,
Mhm.
So, I mean, that might reflect negatively a little bit on the values for houses that are directly next to it, or whether you're on a main road versus being on one of the side roads that are closer to the water. I'm sure all that can
Right.
come into play. Um, Interesting, because when we were talking last week as well, Shaun, I said you deal with a lot of first-time home buyers, and I was interested to ask you what the age ranges were from first-time home buyers, because I think that back 5 years, 6 years, 7 years ago, it was like, okay, somebody right out of college, 21 years old, was buying a house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think those numbers have changed. And what you told me was interesting. Go ahead and let our listeners know what your average age range would be.
I would say my average age range would be somewhere between 25 to 35 years old. And like you said, a lot of those are first-time home buyers. And I'm a younger guy myself, so people tend to want to work with people who they think are like themselves.
Right,
So
exactly.
that's part of
Like and
why.
trust.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I think that the big takeaway too is, I mean, that you really know your areas. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's not like you saying, okay, I do Stafford.
Right.
And because there's agents that do that. I mean, Stafford's so far away. I mean, I can't imagine you wanting to commute from Arlington
Right.
to Stafford back and forth. And I think that some agents do that, and really you can't be an expert everywhere.
Right.
It's just impossible.
I mean, I've sold houses in areas like that. I've sold houses anywhere from Baltimore down
Right.
to Fredericksburg, but it's been like one or two, and
Right.
that was probably earlier in my career. Now I tend to focus closer to the D.C. metro areas, specifically Arlington and Alexandria, and in other parts of Fairfax County.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, for you first-time home buyers that are out there listening right now, last week actually interest rates had risen a little bit. They went from the average from Bankrate.com was a 30-year fix was 4.58% up from 4.5. 15-year fix was 3.71 versus 3.67 the previous week. 5-year ARM was at 3.16 versus 3.06 the week before. I don't want to sound like I'm preaching by any means, but these numbers, every time I say them, I get choked up. I'm like 3%, 4%. I mean, we're not talking about like I don't know what savings rates were 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, these are actual mortgage interest rates, and every time I look at them, I'm just kind of like, there's such a tremendous opportunity for you that are out there that are on the fence, that are saying, well, I've been renting for the last 5 or 6 years. What do I do? Do I, wait until what Shaun says, the landlord all of a sudden gets a hold of one of these national headlines and he's like, how come I'm priced $500 below what everybody else is in this building? Then you get in a situation where, you're like, well, I can't afford that. And then you're stuck out there looking, where you could probably start, being proactive and, start looking now, knowing your lease is coming due in 3, 4, 5 months. So you already have a plan in place. I mean, I think that, do you agree, Shaun, that you get pushed up against a wall a little bit? You might be forced to take something that you really don't want.
Right. Yeah. Some people don't always realize. Sometimes it might take some time to find the right home for them. It's not like rental properties are hard to come by nowadays too. But sometimes it's tough to find out what your wants and needs really are until you get out there and start looking.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting because one of the other blogs that I pulled up this morning was with the bad unemployment numbers that were the national numbers, and this blog was the unemployment's impact on housing, and I'll kind of read this. It says, what impact does rising unemployment have on the real estate market? It says, actually, it's quite simple. Rising unemployment creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates fear. Fear creates paralysis. Paralysis prevents people from moving forward with their lives. And I think that that's quite true. I mean, I think that there's so many different, media outlets, newspapers, blogs that are all talking about the negativity that's out there. And I mean, for people that have the ability and the capacity to buy right now, for them, just because Joe Schmo up the street says that, oh, I think prices are going to come down another 10%. I mean, I think it's like what Lewis says. I mean, Warren Buffett is not a real estate guru. He's a stock guru. So you kind of need to make your decision based upon where you are at in your life right now.
Yeah, just because someone else is unemployed doesn't mean your circumstances is anywhere near that.
And you know what? They tend to – other people that are in those situations tend to maybe bring you down a little bit, and like, well, maybe that could be me. Well, the flip side of it is what happens if you don't take advantage of it right now? And what happens if you wait until next year? And our worst fear, Lewis, is that interest rates rise about 2.5%. Because that's what
you don't lose your job.
And, yeah, exactly. And you don't lose your job. Now you can afford probably $200,000 less of a house than you can right now. So it's just interesting. I think
and worse, what if you got promoted?
That would be terrible. Promoted? Is that going on right now? Well, it is somewhere. Somebody's being promoted.
All at home game people are getting promoted.
I love it. Anyway, we're coming up on our final break. When we come back, we'll do a quick little wrap up. Thank you for listening to Real Estate Radio.